Hey guys, Patrick Freeman here in Chongqing, China. Today is March 5th. Today, and actually going forward, unless the episode calls for it, I'm not going to share the numbers with you anymore for a couple of reasons. Number one, so many countries have it, and it'd take me all day to go through it. Not that I've really been doing that. And then two, you guys probably check these numbers in your respective country, in your respective area and neighborhood, probably several times a day, as virulent as this thing is becoming. I'm going to save you. I'll leave that to you guys. What I want to talk about today is common sense. And it just seems like the common sense has gone out, as the old saying, throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's being done all over the world. All the way from, leadership within the government, the CDC, the WHO, all the way down to the local civilian. It's just crazy. And I have this picture of, when you whistle to a dog, especially a puppy. I know puppies do this more than adult dogs do, at least the ones that I've owned in the past. When you whistle, they kind of give you that, they twist their head like, what the hell is that? What sound doth come from your mouth? They just have that look. They have no clue and just trying to figure it out. That's the way I feel when I watch the news, the YouTube channels that have little excerpts from the news and the things that people are saying. I mean, the WHO and the CDC have been saying that you don't need masks, that they're not effective. Well, to some extent they are, because if medical professionals didn't feel they were effective, they sure as hell wouldn't be wearing masks. And I think we all know that it's important to have masks, and that it does have some effect on keeping an individual from getting the virus. Like I said, if the medical field didn't think so, they would say so by now. But from what I see in China and all the other countries that are dealing with this issue, is all the medical professionals are wearing masks. So that line of thinking doesn't work with me. And like I said, it's just this common sense that I don't get. And what I want to do is answer a question that will actually get me to my point of talking about common sense. I talked about the government. There's no common sense there, but that is what it is. I've been getting the question quite often, like, is the government locking individuals in their apartments? And the answer to the question is yes, they are. But it's not happening all over the nation. And there's several reasons why this has happened in local areas, more specifically in rural areas. I know Wuhan, it's happening. What's happened is you get a directive from Beijing to the entire country. There's 1.4 billion people. And there's a lot of people who are in administrative type positions, government positions, and executing those orders. And those orders can be misread, they can be misconstrued and mistranslated and all sorts of stuff. And by the time it gets down to a local individual who's maybe over a village or two, can mistranslate that. And not only that, you've got individuals who are overzealous, who are very protective of their communities, and will do anything and everything possible to protect these people. So what's happened in some local areas, not all over China, but in some local areas, rural areas within China, you've got these overzealous leaders who find out that somebody has the virus or potentially has the virus, and they've shut them in their apartments, in their homes, welded doors shut, have put things to block the door so they can't get out. Now, is that the right thing to do? Probably not, especially from a safety standpoint. If the house were to catch on fire, or if you needed to get in for another medical reason, you couldn't do it. So that's obviously an extreme, and it's not the right decision to make. And the government has since then kind of reiterated, unless it's absolutely necessary, don't be locking people in their apartments. So hopefully that brings some clarity to that question that's come up. Now, here in Chongqing, where I used to live, within a couple of 100 yards walk, there was an apartment complex that there was a case, and they literally shut down the entire complex. You couldn't go in, you couldn't go out. And this is a high rise, so you probably have, maybe 1,000 people living in this apartment complex. Well, they didn't leave them to themselves. They provided food, they've been delivering food. And I think another thing that people don't realize is if you are locked in your apartment, that doesn't restrict you from ordering stuff. They've got Taobao. Taobao is just like Amazon, and you can order anything you want. In fact, I've ordered Jiffy peanut butter, We've ordered rice, we've ordered beans, we've ordered honey, we've ordered lots of stuff. What happens when you order it, and for an apartment that's been in lockdown, they deliver it outside the apartment, and so they have a designated area. You go down to the designated area and you pick up your stuff and go back to the apartment. So in some larger cases, there has been apartment lockdowns, not where the doors have literally been bolted shut, but where there's security and police officers not letting anyone in or out. The other reason that apartments are being locked up is because you've got repeat offenders. You've got individuals who have been told, either because they have the virus or they're suspected of having the virus, they've been told to stay in their apartment for 14 days, and they haven't listened. They've broken the law, they've broken the rule, and have repeatedly gone out to the grocery store, to the mall. There's all sorts of videos catching these people outside of the apartments. As a result, the authorities are showing up and they're welding these doors shut so they keep the people in. Now, another thing they're doing for those repeat offenders is they're showing up with a medical team who've got the medical suits on, the mask, the protective eyewear. They've got police officers there, and they're all filming it. And if you've seen some of the videos, you see some of the police officers filming the whole situation because they want proof, where they're actually dragging these people out and they're taking them to quarantine centers because they refuse to go get medical treatment. And there might be I think the last video I saw, there was 3 or 4 people being drug out. I asked Toy Toy about it. She was aware of it. She had seen it. And that was the reason they drug them out, is because they were repeat offenders. They were endangering the neighborhood, and they were refusing to get medical coverage. So that's what's happening as far as that's concerned. And that leads me to what I want to talk about on the common sense. I mean, obviously, when someone's told not to leave their apartment for 14 days, common sense tells you stay in your apartment, do what the authorities say. Okay, in the United States, and I mentioned this probably 6 videos ago, where you had a doctor, a medical professional. She was a medical professional. She was a journalist as well, worked for NBC or CBS. She went to cover the Ebola event back in 2013. She returned home. She was told to go into quarantine. She didn't quarantine herself. She actually ended up getting caught outside of her house. I think she was actually out with her film crew. Either way, she got fired. Fortunately, she didn't have Ebola virus, but she potentially endangered other people's lives and just disobeyed, probably what she was teaching other people not to do, and she herself broke that rule. Like I said, she got fired, deservedly so, and fortunately nobody got sick. And I said in that video, it's going to happen. And not just a week later, 48 hours ago, I read a news article in New Hampshire about an individual. They were part of I don't know if they're actually a doctor or nurse, but they're part of the municipality and the medical administration. I'll post the article so you can read it in more detail and learn more about this individual that did this. But they became sick. They went to the hospital, had a test run to see if they had the Ebola virus, and it takes a couple of days. So they were told to go back home and quarantine themselves voluntarily for 14 days. Well, they must have stayed for 2 or 3 days, and they decided that it was more important that they go to a invitation-only private event conference thing. I don't know what it was that they went to, but they went out and I guess had a good time, got around other people, maybe 50 to 100 people. I don't know how many people were at the event. And when they returned home, they got news that they actually had the coronavirus. And this is like where I'm just like almost a loss for words on what to say about this situation. But I'll try to express myself as best as I can without dropping any F-bombs in there, because I'm really pissed about this situation and this person that did this. But you're told to stay in your apartment and you disobey that, and you go, and I believe there's one other individual that has now since caught the virus. You go endanger other people's lives so you can show up at some stupid conference, and you don't listen to what you're being told to do. And I'm dumbfounded at the stupidity of people. This is what ought to happen to that individual. Once this is all over and they're cured of the virus, they ought to be arrested. They ought to be put in jail. They ought to be charged with potential involuntary manslaughter charges, or whatever charges would equate to what they have done, depending if somebody dies or not. And then 2, I think their entire estate ought to be sold off so that their own medical bills will be covered, in addition to covering other people and other losses, and maybe even some funerals. That's what ought to happen to individuals like that. Is that going to happen? Probably not. It probably won't happen at all. But I'll tell you what is going to happen as more of these stories come out. And he's not the only one that did this. I'm sure there are others, and there will be others. Here's the danger that you pose to yourself as an individual that chooses not to listen to sticking to a 14-day quarantine. Very shortly, and I think very soon, you're going to have these, what I call virus vigilantes, showing up when it is found out that individuals have this virus. Probably a good chance they're going to have cameras on your house. They're going to be filming you, and they're going to do everything possible within their power to make sure that you stay home. And I will say, and I use the word vigilante, and we know what vigilantes can do. They can cause all sorts of havoc and all sorts of problem, and they could probably do the same thing for individuals that don't adhere to the 14-day rule. I don't think the government has the resources to sit here and babysit people to make sure they stay home, but I guarantee you people will take the situation into their own hands and they will make sure that you stay home. And I think, and I hope I'm wrong, God forbid that this happened, but I think some of those vigilantes will probably do more damage and harm to individuals than anybody wants, if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, people could die as a result of it. You know, just imagine, all it takes is one guy saying, I'm fed up with this 14-day quarantine, I'm going to the damn grocery store, or I'm going to the movie, and there might be somebody there just waiting to stop them. And it may not end very well. So keep an eye out, open for that, and my recommendation is stay. If you think you are sick, don't go to the hospital. Call somebody that they can do a video conference call with you to determine whether you have it or not. They're saying get an ambulance to pick you up, because if you go to the hospital and you think you have it, you could possibly be getting other people sick in the waiting room. So call the authorities first. I do trust them in that sense, because they do have a system set up for it. And if you do have it, you're either in the hospital or you're either at home in self-quarantine. Stay home. Stay home. Stay home. Stay home. Stay home. Stay home. Don't endanger other people's lives, because you know you've got too much pride resting on your shoulders. You know, let go of the pride and stay home. If you're worried about getting fed, there's a thing called Amazon Prime, and there's a ton of grocery store services that will deliver groceries to your front doorstep. It'll make your life super easy. You've got a thing called Netflix, you've got a thing called Amazon Prime, you've got cable, you've got all these things you can do and that you can entertain yourself with in the house while you're on your 14-day quarantine. Don't endanger other people's lives because you have no common sense. Stay home. And I know there's a lot of bad information out there, from the municipality level all the way to the CDC to the WHO, but the one thing that is working is people in self-isolation. Keeping yourself away from other people is the best way to keep people from getting sick. So, you know, I want to drop some F-bombs, but I'm not going to do that. But I just the common sense is gone out the window. Like I said, it's like a drunken stupor. And it's not a Chinese thing. It's not an American thing. It's not an Australian thing. It's not an Iranian thing. It's a human nature stupidity thing. That's what it is. And people, this is not a time to be stupid. This is a time to respect your fellow human being and be courteous, be respectful, and try to muster up as much resolve as you possibly can, so that other people will not get sick. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it saddens me to see individuals like what happened in the United States, and you're going to start to get wind of these things happen all over the world where people just completely disobey it. And it's not right. It's not right, and you need to stay home. So, all right, that's my soapbox, guys. I'm going to shut up now. I appreciate you. I love you. I thank you for all your messages, your encouraging words, and some of you who post some challenging questions. I appreciate those too as well. And I appreciate you playing nice in the discussion section. I'll leave it at that. I love you. Take care of yourselves. And guys, listen to me. Be prepared. You need to be prepared. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.